Hi Cedar House, good afternoon. I'm so glad that you guys have come to join me for some time out in nature. We call this time NAP, which stands for Nature, Art, and Poetry. I hope you guys can see me okay. We're getting a new video thing happening. It comes in the mail tomorrow, so hopefully we can fix some of these problems. It takes me such a long time to get things maneuvered and set up. You'd be amazed at how I'm bungee cording my phone to different things. But this is Henley here with me, my son, and we are here doing NAP. And right now, today, we're gonna really focus on nature journaling. I've got some nature journaling tips for you guys. And I also have a story, which I actually wanna start out with the story first. But we are here at our frog pond. This is a place that we like to come and do NAP with the kids. They named it the frog pond because we always see little frogs. And as soon as I walked over, all the little frogs started jumping.
And then there's a ton of minnows in there.
There are a ton of minnows. We should show them right now. Why don't we do that? Let's walk over. We're gonna walk over and we're gonna show you the pond and we're gonna show you some minnows. And then Henley found something really exciting that he discovered before we start our story. So let's do that. So we're gonna come on over here. Henley, point out the minnows to them.
The things that are moving. There's a ton of them.
Can you see all the minnows? Henley, can you show them what else you found over here at the frog pond? Can you pull it out and show it to them?
Here's a snail. Here's some snails.
All right, can you show it where the camera can see it, Henley? Can you put it where the camera? Super fun. Did you say you found some snail eggs?
Yep. But let's see. Where was
We'll pull up another leaf. There might be some more. Look at all those minnows. If you're just joining us, that's what we were showing you over here at the frog pond at the Cedar House. Tons and tons of frog minnows. No, I'm sorry, fish minnows. Because we're at the frog pond, I said frog minnows. Those are so fascinating. I hope you can see them. I love looking at them. Did you find your snail eggs?
Yep.
Can you show the camera what a snail egg looks like?
So it's like a big gel ball.
Hold it real still where they can see it.
It's like a big gel ball.
You'll see that?
You can't really see it. But it's like
No, I saw it on there. Hold it again.
It's a big gel ball, kind of.
Pull it lower, be still. There, and it's real clear and it looks like a bubble.
Yeah.
That is so exciting. Well, this is our frog pond. We always love to come over here and nature journal. So I'm gonna start out today by reading you guys a story about John James Audubon. I'll try and reset my camera here. Forgive all the weird camera stuff. All right. This book here, which is gonna be backwards for you, but that's quite all right, is called The Boy Who Drew Birds. Okay? Henley, why don't you come over here and enjoy the story? Why don't you sit? That's okay, you can sit over there. All right, The Boy Who Drew Birds. It's a story of John James Audubon, okay? It was true that John James could skate, hunt, and ride better than most boys. True also that he could dance the minuet and gavotte as if he had been born a king. He could fiddle, he could flirt, he could fence, But what he liked to do best from sunup to sundown was watch birds. John James' happiest memories were of woodland walks with his father near their home in France. On these walks, Papa Audubon would talk of birds, their beautiful colors, their graceful flight, and most wonderful of all, their mysterious disappearance each fall, followed by their faithful return in spring. But now John James was 18 years old and he walked through the Pennsylvania woods alone, his father 4,000 miles away. Only 6 months before, his father had put him on a ship. The ship carried John James Audubon to America, where he was to live in a farmhouse on the banks of a creek. His father had sent him there to learn English, to learn commerce, and to learn how to make money in America. But mostly he sent away his only son so that John James would not have to fight in Napoleon's war. John James wondered if he would ever see his father again. It was in April in Pennsylvania, and slashes of snow still lay in deep hollows. John James splashed across the icy creek. He scambled up the bank and approached the limestone cave, wondering what he would find today, just the empty nest of a peewee bird as he had found the last 5 days. Or would there be, here's a picture. Or would there be, flip, 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 a flurry of wings greeted John James. The peewee flycatchers had returned. The female bird flew out of the cave like an arrow shot from a bow. The male bird, larger and darker, beat his wings above John James' head and snapped his beak. Clack, clack, clack! John James ran out of the cave and crouched next to the creek. He watched as the birds dipped and soared, snapping up mayflies in flight. Are these the same peewees who built the nest last year? He wondered. Where did they spend the winter? Will they return next spring? Do I hear that beautiful bird? They're shy, they're being quiet now. There it is. John James ran home through the woods. Madame Thomas, Madame Thomas, he shouted, bursting into the farmhouse kitchen. Il est des osnutsku. I don't know French. In his excitement, his words tumbled out in French. Miss Thomas was the housekeeper Papa Audubon had hired to take care of Mill Grove, his American farmhouse. He pointed to her long wooden spoon at John James's muddy shoes. He quickly took them off and placed them by the fire to dry. Birds, he said. I see birds too, in a cave. Beautiful. Miss Thomas frowned. She was fond of this energetic French boy, and yet she had to admit that he was something of a cracked pot. Birds, always birds, from the moment he woke up and in the morning to the moment he closed his eyes at night. He thought only of birds. It was strange for a boy his age. Master Audubon, she scolded, thou wouldst do well to do God's work by tending the farm more and chasing after birds less. But John James, halfway up the staircase, pretended not to hear. He climbed straight up to his attic room. His monsieur, he called it. Every shelf, every tabletop, every spare inch of floor was covered with nests and eggs and tree branches, and pebbles, and lichen, and feathers, and stuffed birds, redwings, and grackles, kingfisher, and woodpecker birds, all signed JJA. Every year on his birthday, John James took down these drawings, a year's worth of work, and burned them in the fireplace. He hoped someday he would make drawings worth keeping. Look at all this stuff on all these pages. Hey, Faith. Good to see you, girl. Can you see me okay? don't know if the sun makes me look really dark, but anyway, we'll keep on. John James went to his bookcase and took down the natural history books, gifts from his father. Where do small birds go in the winter? Do the same birds come back in the same nest each spring? The scientists who wrote these books did not agree. Each one gave a different answer. 2,000 years before, the Greek philosopher Aristotle had given his answers to these questions. Aristotle said that every fall, great flocks of cranes flew south and returned in the spring. But he believed that small birds did not migrate. Small birds, wrote Aristotle, hibernated underwater or in hollow logs all winter. Many scientists of the day still agreed with Aristotle. Small birds, they said, gathered themselves in a great ball, clinging beak to beak, wing to wing, and foot to foot, and lay underwater all winter, frozen-like. Fishermen even told stories of catching such tangles of birds in their nests. John James had never, ever found a tangled ball of birds underwater. And he did not believe everything the scientists said. Why, some of them believed that birds transformed from one kind into another each winter. And one scientist claimed that birds traveled to the moon each fall and returned in the spring. He said the trip took 60 days. Woo! John James had never spent much time inside a classroom, and he had failed every exam he had taken in school. But he considered himself a naturalist. He studied birds and nature to learn their habits and behaviors. I will bring my books to the cave, John James decided, and my pencils and paper. I will even bring my flute. I will study my cave birds every day. I will draw them just as they are. And because he was a boy who loved the out of doors more than the in, that is just what he did. In a week, the birds were used to him. They ignored him as if he were an old stump. They carried bits of moist mud as he drew with his pencils. They brought in tufts of green moss as he read his French fables. They gathered stray goose feathers from the banks of the creek as he played songs on his flute. Soon the dried brown nest had become a soft green bed, and John James had learned to imitate the throaty call of the birds. Phoebe! Phoebe! Spring slipped into summer, summer sighed and became fall, and John James watched as two broods of nestlings hatched. He watched as the young birds flew for the first time. He began to feel a part of this small family. When the days grew short and the autumn air began to bite, John James knew the birds would leave soon. But would they come back? He had to know. The question was terribly important to the boy so far from his family. In bed that night, he formed a plan. The next day, when the mother and father birds were away from the nest, John James picked up one of the baby birds. He had read of medieval kings who tied bands on the legs of their prize falcons so that a lost falcon could be returned. Why not band a wild bird to find out where it goes? It had never been done, but John James could try. He pulled a string from his pocket and tied it loosely around the baby bird's leg. The bird pecked it off. The next day, he tied another string to the bird's leg. Again, the bird pecked it off. Finally, John James walked 5 miles to the nearest village and bought some thread woven of fine strands of silver. This thread was soft and strong. He tied a piece of it loosely to one leg of each baby bird. A week later, the birds were gone. All winter, John James worked in his musée, painting the pencil sketches he had made in the cave. He hoped that on his next birthday, he would have 1 or 2 pictures worth saving from the fire. The creek was frozen now, and each time John James skated past the empty cave, he thought of the 2,000-year-old question: where do small birds go, and do they return to the same nest in the spring? The days grew longer. The ice on the creek cracked and melted. One morning, John James heard a bird call, "Phoebe! Phoebe!" He ran to the cave. He ducked his head and stepped inside. The female bird did not fly out of the cave like an arrow shot from a bow. The male bird did not beat his wings above John James's head and snap his beak. Instead, he ignored John James as if he were an old stump. Watching the birds fly in and out of the cave, John James knew that his friends had returned. But where were last year's babies now grown? Had they returned too? He began to search the woods and orchard nearby, listening for their call.
Phoebe, Phoebe, Phoebe.
Out in the meadow inside a hay shed, he found two birds building a nest. One wore a silver thread around his leg up the creek under a bridge. He found two more nesting birds, and one wore a silver thread around its leg. John James wanted to shout, "Yes!" The same birds returned to the same nest, and their children nest nearby. But who would have heard him? I will write to my father, he decided. I will tell him what I have learned in America. And when I am older, I will find a way to tell the whole world. He ran back to his house to gather his pencils, paper, and flute as he called, "Phoebe, Phoebe!" I want to read to you a little bit about John James Audubon. I should have done this in the beginning so you'd know who we were reading about. But about John James Audubon. Banding a bird, that is, tying a marker around a bird's leg to track its movement, was an innovative idea in Audubon's time. In fact, in 1804, John James became the first person in North America to band a bird. His simple experiment helped prove a complex theory. Many birds return to the same nest each year, and their offspring nest nearby. Can you get her to stop that, please? This behavior is called bombing. The rest of the world learned of Audubon's experiment when he wrote about it in his book. Later, in the 20th century, scientists used bird banding to prove that small birds migrate. Not long after the story in this book ends, John James returned to France and his father's house. Perhaps he, like the birds, felt a pull toward home. But a year later, he sailed back to America, saying goodbye to Papa Audubon, his friend through life. It was the last time he saw his father. The young John James grew to be the greatest painter of birds of all time. He was the first to paint life-size images of birds and the first to show birds hunting, preening, fighting, and flying. His revolutionary paintings pleased two audiences: scientists who were drawn to their accuracy and ordinary people who simply enjoyed the beauty of his birds. Also, he is really known for just nature journaling. John James Audubon, he would get out and observe in great detail, okay? Great detail, and he would draw things. Henley's laughing at the picture right here. This is just one of his entries from his nature journaling. And so I read this story so that we could talk to you guys today about some tips on nature journaling, all right? And observation and exploring things in nature. Now, by no means am I claiming to be an expert, and so this is not a class or lesson. We're actually in the comments of this live thread. We are going to share, Miss Laura, who's amazing and smart, is going to share a link to a free resource right now to families. One of our moms mentioned it to me, as well as Miss Laura, through the Audubon Society. It's a resource on training you how to nature journal well, okay? So first, before we start talking about nature journaling, we are going to go on a little walk. You guys at the Cedar House, we have showed you in our classroom, outdoor classroom, we've shown you, Henley, do you remember what kind of tree we were observing before everybody left?
A winged elm. No, a white elm.
A white elm, but it was also a winged elm. We were looking at a winged elm tree and a white elm tree, but we're just going to talk about the white elm tree today. But before everybody left, we were, are you here with me? Okay, before everybody left, we were really looking at this white elm tree, and it just started to bud, okay? Well, now it's changed a little bit, and so we're gonna walk over to this white elm, and I want you to notice the differences and the changes, and we're gonna show it to you, and then I'm also gonna describe to you nature journaling. I've done some nature journaling myself on the white elm, and we're going to work on this together. I'm super excited. So I'm gonna pick up my camera. All right, here we go. And we're gonna come right over here. At our frog pond, we have a winged elm, white elm, excuse me, I keep saying the wrong one. So we're gonna come right over here, and it's a small one. It's not as big as the one in the classroom, but I'm gonna turn this camera.
How do you know it's a white elm?
So Henley's gonna stand there.
How do you know it's a white elm?
This is a white elm right here. So these are some of the branches.
How do you know it's a white elm? You can't see any of its buds.
Yeah, I can. You can see the buds right here, and these are the leaves. So it was just budding right before you guys left, okay? It was just budding. And I'm gonna fan back so you can see the whole thing. Henley, can you go stand by the trunk so you can put your hand on it so they know which one we're talking about? Henley's hand is on the trunk. Where are you, Henley? There you are. Okay, and so I'm gonna fan out. He's on the trunk. I'm gonna show you the trunk up close so you can see it. Is it shining on your hand? Yep. So this is the trunk. We're gonna get a little bit closer so you can see it. Okay, and we're gonna fan out, and now I'm gonna show you the branch again. Actually, do you know what, guys, kids? This is a good way to know we're really observing. This is actually a winged elm. When I came out here and looked before, I was just looking at the edge. See how the branches are smooth? A winged elm, it has little wings on the branches. Do you see these wings? So this is how we know the difference between a winged elm
And also,
and a white elm.
How do you know
So
it's a winged
Miss Samantha
elm
didn't look very close.
If it has the white elm seeds.
But I see a white elm right over here. Nope, that is not.
Yep, here's a white elm over here, Mama.
Here is a white elm, right here. Yep, white elm.
No,
Whew.
it has different types of leaves.
It does, that's right. That's right. Okay, so,
Mama, this is, Mama, let me show you.
no, that's a different type.
Mama, I'm talking about right here. Right here. This one.
Well, Miss Samantha has a branch over here because I actually was studying this earlier, but I was studying the one at the outdoor classroom. And then I decided, oh, it'd be really nice to do this video over at the frog pond because it's so pretty. So I'm gonna look one more time real close to see if we can find a white elm because that's what I drew. Let's look right over here. I see some more. That's a winged elm. That's a winged elm. Okay. Well, that's all right. That's all right. I've got a branch for you guys to look at. So what you could do, I wonder if this is a big white elm. Nope, that's something different. Okay, well, what we're gonna do is we're gonna come right over here and I'm gonna show you where I have my nature journaling set up. I wanna make sure that you can see me. This is better. Okay. Sit this down right here. Everything looks dark. That's okay. Sorry, guys. Okay, hopefully that will be good. All right, here is what I drew earlier today. I want to make sure y'all can see. Kind of losing it here. Now, since I drew it, Blue Moon went in the pond and he walked on it. So,
Yeah,
sorry
since
about
Mama
that.
drew it. She never walks on mine.
Okay, so what I have here is the page that I drew about the white elm, okay? And I also have a branch here. I took a sample branch here, and I did some things with it. So before I show you that anymore, I want to talk to you for just a little bit about why we nature journal, okay? So we nature journal because it will help us remember and learn better about the things that we've observed in nature. And it's very good whenever you're out on nature walks to go to the same places and observe the same things over and over again throughout the different seasons, because, hold on just one second, because I want you to come over here so you can see me and hear what I'm saying. Come on over here so you can see me. Don't get behind me. I'm talking to you as well. This is part of your class. Okay, so Henley, part of what we want to do when we're out observing nature, you know how John James Audubon went to the same cave over and over and over and saw different birds through different seasons. Over and over, he could see the changes and the different things that happened. And so that's what we're doing when I say, okay, let's go find something new in nature and explore it and observe it. You want to take such time and care. You don't want to go and explore 15 things all at once. So today I decided I'm just going to look at this white elm tree. I'm going to check it out and see what I can learn about this white elm tree, because we've been watching it over the past couple of months to see the changes. We saw the leaves fall, and then it was bare over the winter, and then all of a sudden one day these buds started sprouting. And we thought at first that the buds were the leaves coming out, but it wasn't. It was these seeds coming out. And it was really, really, really interesting to watch. And so for a while, all we saw were these seeds. And then all of a sudden, these leaves started sprouting. And they're beautiful, and they're getting bigger every single day. So what you want to do is you want to go and find one thing in nature. And check it out. Look at it. Touch it. Smell it. Feel it. Think about all the different senses you could use. Now be careful about tasting things and touching certain things. You want to make sure that it's safe. So check with your parents, make sure it's not poisonous. There are definitely things out on our property that are poisonous to the touch, poisonous to eating. So you really want to be careful about that. But the white elm, it's safe. And I'm pretty certain you probably have a white elm near you, okay? So that's what you want to do, is observe. And sometimes you take your nature journal with you when you're out in the field, like I did today. I went and I sat by the winged elm, or the white elm. There's a winged elm and a white elm right next to each other, so that's why I'm getting them confused. But there was a white elm. So I sat and I looked at it and I observed and I touched, and then I took off a little branch and then I started to draw it. And when you're nature journaling, so here's one tip. When you're nature journaling, it's not about how pretty your picture is. It's not about how beautiful that picture is. It is about observation. It's about observing what you're looking at, and it's going to help you remember things. And I suggest that you come back to your pages and add to it as different seasons happen. And so one suggestion is, as you see here, I kind of sketched what my white elm looked like, a big version of it, just the whole tree. I didn't do the top part, I just did kind of from the bark angle. I did this big angle, okay? And at first I had just little squiggly lines for the bark, but then I looked closer at the bark and I realized it had kind of this zigzag or figure 8 pattern a little bit, is kind of what it looked like to me. And so I kind of added that in. And then I have this branch here, and I decided, well, I'm gonna try and draw this branch, okay? And so I did the lines. I tried to do the same thing as the directions that were happening. And I noticed that the leaves are extra pointy, you know, at the end. They're kind of jagged and pointy, and so I tried to recreate that. And then they have these lines in it, that have these lines in it. And so that was a different angle. I just looked at just one branch, and things were blooming. And one thing, just to back up, Miss Megan always teaches us this, that whenever we're nature journaling, we want to put the date at the top. So I put March 25th, 2020, okay? So we went ahead and did that, okay? Because when I go back in May and June, I go back to my nature journal page from this tree that I've seen, I'm gonna be like, oh, it's changing, it looks different. This is what it looked like in March on the 25th. Even tomorrow and the next day as the leaves get bigger, I'm gonna go back and be like, whoa, look at the difference. And another thing that I did right here, if you can see this leaf right here, what I did is I took the leaf right I think it's this one.
Yep, you did.
And I traced it, and I tried to do it the exact size that this leaf was, okay? And I even went as far as, in my observation, is there's these lines in this leaf. I counted on this side how many lines were on there, and I wrote it next to. There were 16 lines on this side. But guess what was on the other side? There were 13 lines on the other side. How weird is that? And I could even go deeper, and I could count like all the lines on all the leaves. I wonder if they're the same. That's something that you could do, okay?
Yeah, why don't you?
And then I've made some comments on here. You want to, if you know how to write, and some people do, some people aren't there yet, but if you know how to write words, then it's good for you to, these things that you are thinking as you're looking at your nature item, take notes. And listen, your page can look however you want to. I've seen people where they do notes all the way around the edges, or they do notes around their picture really beautifully. And sometimes it's just chicken scratch. It's yours. It's yours to help you remember and know what you're doing. So what I noticed, right here is a little seed that I drew, and unfortunately, can we go to that tree and get from the winged elm and get a seed so that we can show them?
There is no.
We'll go check on the ground.
There's winged elm
Please go.
seeds, but it's supposed to be white elm seeds.
I know, it's okay. I just want to show them because the winged elm and the white elm are very similar. But anyway, there was a seed connected to this branch. It's fallen off since, but there's a seed right there that I traced as well. I traced and I did as much detail as I could, okay, of the seed, but then I also made some comments. Seeds are all over the ground is what I wrote. They are, like these winged elms, even after I wrote this and I was walking, they started falling down on me, okay? And so that's something else I could go back and add to my page. Seeds are falling from the trees right now and they're on the ground. But then in purple, I started writing some questions, which is good for you to write your questions because you're not gonna be out in nature and know everything about the subject that you're drawing or whatever. You're gonna be like, wonder what this is. And so one of my questions was, do birds eat the seeds when they fall to the ground? I know when seeds fall to the ground, you know, eventually they might turn into another tree. But that was my other question. When does that happen? How long would it take for that seed to germinate in the ground? And what kind of bird would like these white elm seeds? That's another question you could put. Down here, I put some more questions. Are elm trees good to have on your property? Is that something, what are the benefits of having a white elm tree? Because you hear people say, ooh, you don't want that kind of tree. Well, what about the white elm? Do we want that kind of tree? How many different types of elm trees are there? That's something else that spurs on a question. How many different types? I know there's a white elm, there's a winged elm. So these are different things that you can write down. And then of course I wrote white elm tree on here. And so this is Miss Samantha's nature journal page that I did super big for you to see. And I'm not certain if you were able to see it. Oh, that's better. And here's a seed Henley has. Oh, whoop. These seeds are super, super light. It already blew away, the seed that he got. So anyway, I encourage you to get out today or tomorrow, sometime this week. And I'm gonna be specific. I say that find a tree that's in your yard. Your favorite tree, okay? Find your favorite tree that is blooming, or maybe it's one that's not blooming. There are some trees on our property that are not blooming. Find that tree, and I want you to observe it, and I want you to nature journal the parts of this tree, the things that you recognize and observe. And then I would love to see them, okay? I would love to see them in detail. And remember, it's not how perfectly you draw the tree. I'll tell you this, I'm not certain that this would go into any art studio or museum as going down as the best white elm tree that was ever drawn. But I will tell you that after drawing it, I am able to recognize and understand a little more about the white elm tree, and it's brought some questions to mind that I want to go look up and learn. So I really encourage you guys to pick a tree and go draw it. Now, it is okay, parents and kids, if you choose something different to go draw, If trees are not your thing, then you can choose something different. But as we're learning, it's really good for us to not say, go nature journal, just nature journal something, which Miss Samantha has said many a time. But it's good for you to just choose one thing and really study it and observe it and enjoy it. And remember John James Audubon, how much he learned and how much we've learned from him about birds because he took the time to stop and observe. And we learn so much when we slow down and we observe the things that God has given us. There's so much to learn about. Even God has written scriptures about trees. And scripture about birds, the things he's made, and we can learn about being a tree planted by streams of water that bears much fruit, okay? That is a great verse to learn from. And so as you're discovering things from the trees, we're not worshiping the trees. We are worshiping the Creator, the God who made these beautiful, beautiful trees and creation so that we can enjoy it and learn from it, okay? So I encourage you to go, and that would be a great thing to put in your nature journal, a scripture, a memory verse that reminds you that that this tree brings to mind, and put that in your journal. And I have one single piece of paper here, but I encourage you. At the Cedar House, we have our own nature journals, okay? And Henley even has one at home that we use sometimes. But I encourage you to have a special book that's yours. It's all yours. And you take it with you and go enjoy nature journaling and experiencing, experiencing the things in your book, and then you can go back and observe it later. I'm moving it because it seems like it's really, really dark right now. But so I'm gonna come back over and show you the frog pond again so y'all can remember where y'all been. The frog pond's still here and it's waiting for you when you come back. We really, really miss you guys, Cedar House. So it's just different. It's a little lonely sometimes without you guys here, but we'll all be back together soon. And I hope that you've been out exploring nature with these spring days. It's so, so beautiful. I'm gonna go ahead because I'm super sad that
we do have one.
It's super sad that it was just a winged elm that was over here. So I'm gonna walk over to the white elm because it's not a far walk. So if you don't mind walking with me for a few minutes, I'm gonna show you this white elm tree that's by our classroom, and then you can kind of remember what it looked like. And those of you who are just joining in with us, the white elm and winged elm tree are right next to our outdoor classroom, and the kids have been observing as the buds began to sprout off of the branches. And so I'm showing them what's happened, how they blossomed, and we're nature journaling this white elm, but where I was, there was just a winged elm. And so I really felt bad. So I want you guys to really be able to see this white elm.
Pinto's having a hissy fit.
Pinto Checker's running in the pasture. Can you hear him? I'm gonna turn it so y'all can see Pinto running. I guess the neighbors are doing something, but here we go. Here is the white elm right here. I'm gonna come back. Okay, that right there is the white elm from afar. We're gonna move closer. I'm gonna show you this branch right here. And this branch has those seeds that I was telling you about that are falling everywhere. Can you see it? So here are the seeds. Where's my finger? Okay. Here are the seeds and then the leaves. All right, and you see how the branch is super, super smooth. Okay, and I'm gonna show you that bark, that figure 8 pattern that I was telling you about on this bark of this white elm. Can you kind of see how that figure 8 pattern happens? That was something that I observed. There's a leaf again. And just over here is that winged elm. I'll show you the winged elm again. See, it's very evident that it's a winged elm because of those wings on the branches. And it's real rough. And look at the bark. The bark is way different than the other bark. It's more jagged, it sticks out further. Anyway, so that's us with nature journaling.
That's a ring dome. That's white elm.
I really love you guys and I miss you guys, and thanks for coming and joining us today. Y'all have a fun day outside. All right, bye-bye.